They thought it was just old pipes, until something screamed from inside the walls. These aren't just horror stories, these are real nightmares people survived. And you might not sleep after hearing them. Story 1: The Backdoor Delivery. My name is Ben. This story happened years ago when I was 17. That summer, I worked night shifts at a pizza shop on the edge of my hometown. It wasn't a great job, but I needed the money. My parents would have been furious if I didn't work. The place was quiet most nights, and honestly, the pizza was terrible. I still don't understand why anyone ordered from us. One night, I was refilling drinks in the fridge when the tablet buzzed with a new online order. It was for a large sausage and olive pizza, which was weird since we almost never got olive orders. The address was far, outside our normal delivery zone. I was going to reject it, but my manager, a guy named Mike who usually just sat in the back on his phone, told me to take it. He said we hadn't had an order in over an hour, and it would help kill some time. I agreed. When the pizza was ready, I typed the address into my phone. Just as I was leaving, I noticed something strange on the printed delivery note. It said, "Park behind the house. Walk through the backyard. Knock on the back door only." That felt a little off. But I told myself there could be reasons. Maybe someone didn't want to wake their kids or a grandparent. Maybe the front door was broken. It wasn't the first weird request I'd seen. Outside, the night air was thick and humid. The kind of hot that made the air feel heavy. It smelled like old plastic and sunbaked dirt, the kind of smell that sticks in your nose. I drove for about 25 minutes, heading away from town and into a more rural area. The farther I got, the fewer houses I saw. Finally, I reached the address. The GPS had taken me to a narrow back street that ran behind the house. There were no streetlights. The houses were dark. I parked on the gravel by the backyard. It looked abandoned, overgrown grass, an old fence, and no cars. Still, I followed the instructions. I took the pizza and my flashlight, walking up the hill toward the back door. It was one of those white doors with a small glass window covered by a curtain. I knocked once. Nothing. I knocked again. Still nothing. Just as I was about to knock a third time, I saw the curtain move, just slightly, like someone brushed it. I froze. Someone was behind the door. I waited for them to open it, but they never did. That's when two unmarked cars pulled up behind mine. A man stepped out of one. I thought I was in trouble for trespassing. But as he got closer, I saw he was holding up a badge. He was a plainclothes cop. He told me to go back to my car and wait. I did as he said. From there, I watched in shock as several more officers moved in, all holding flashlights, silently surrounding the house. No one knocked. No one spoke. It was like a movie. One officer tried the back door I had just knocked on. It was locked. He nodded to another officer and backed off. A few minutes later, the first cop came back to me. He looked at the pizza box and sighed. He told me they were investigating that house and had been watching it. They had to act when I showed up because it messed up their timing. He took down the name and number from the order, someone named Matt, and told me to leave right away. I told him I'd be in trouble at work if I returned with the pizza, but he just shrugged. There was nothing I could do, so I drove back, my heart still racing. It wasn't until I got back that it all hit me. That curtain had moved. Someone had been watching me from the other side. And I kept thinking, what would have happened if the cops hadn't shown up? Why would someone order a pizza during a police stakeout? Maybe they didn't know the cops were watching. Or maybe I was the bait. Maybe they wanted to see if anyone was outside watching. That thought still sends chills down my spine. I never found out what really happened that night. I probably never will. But every now and then, I remember that house, that curtain, and how close I might have come to something terrible. Story 2: The Man in the Walls. My name is David. This happened just last year. I'm 40 years old now, married, with 2 sons, Ethan, who's 7, and Kyle, who's 5. I work in insurance, which is boring, but it pays the bills and keeps life stable. A couple of years ago, my dad passed away after fighting cancer for a long time. He left behind a small beach house in Delaware. I had never been there before because he always rented it out, but after he passed, my family started using it. It's nothing fancy, but it's in a great location, just a block away from the boardwalk. My favorite part is the back deck upstairs. It has a clear view of the ocean. We've been spending time there every summer since, and it's become a special place for my family. The kids love it. They can play on the beach all day, ride bikes, and explore the little town. This story happened during one of our trips last summer. We had gone for a week in mid-July. I remember it clearly. It was a Wednesday night. The kids had gone to bed around 9:30 after a long day outside, and my wife, Emma, and I were sitting on the back deck drinking wine and playing cards. Then Ethan came outside. He looked worried. He said he kept hearing a scratching sound in his room, and it was keeping him awake. I looked at my wife, then stood up and told her I'd go check. I didn't want to wake up Kyle, so I went down with Ethan to his room. He pointed to the wall near his bed and told me to be quiet. We both stood still for a while. At first, I didn't hear anything. But then I caught the sound. A soft scratching, coming from inside the wall, near the floor. I knelt down and pressed my ear to the wall. That's when I heard it. It was breathing. Slow, heavy, human breathing. I jumped back in shock and whispered, "Jesus!" And then it happened, a loud, angry scream from inside the wall. I can't describe how terrifying it was. It didn't sound like an animal. It sounded like a man. A man full of rage. Without thinking, I grabbed Ethan by the arm and pulled him out of the room. We ran down the hall, and I picked up Kyle from his bed without even waking him. I raced toward the stairs, yelling for Emma. As we reached the top of the stairs, I heard another scream, closer this time. I turned and saw a man charging at us from the hallway. He was filthy and wild-looking. I ran up the last few steps and slid the back door shut just as he hit the glass. He slammed into it hard, making it shake. He started clawing and screaming, smearing something across the glass, blood, dirt, I don't know what. I threw myself against the door to hold it shut while yelling at Emma to call the police. Emma grabbed the boys and pulled them away. I kept holding the door with everything I had. I was sure it would break. The man just kept yelling, banging, and trying to get in. I was ready to fight if I had to. Thankfully, the police showed up before the door gave out. They came around the side of the house, and 2 officers ran inside. One tackled the man from behind. The other helped restrain him. After that, everything felt like a blur. The officers asked me what had happened, and I told them everything. We checked the house together and discovered something I didn't know about. There was a crawl space under the back porch. It led to a hidden access panel inside Ethan's closet. Later, a detective told me the man had been living in that crawl space for months. He found it during the off-season and had been stealing food and watching us. That night he planned to hurt us. He thought we had taken over his home. We didn't go back for the rest of the summer. It wasn't fear. It was trauma. I didn't want to risk anything with my kids. I hired a crew to seal the crawl space, and only after that did we return the next summer. Things are normal now. But I'll never forget the sound of that scream coming from inside the walls. Story 3: The Basement Lights. My name is Aaron. This story happened when I was in college. I used to rent a small house near campus with my 2 friends, Mark and Leo. The house was old, the kind with creaky floors and a weird smell no matter how much you cleaned. But it was cheap, and that's all we cared about. The basement was the creepiest part of the house. It was unfinished, with stone walls, old wooden beams, and one single bulb in the middle. You had to pull a cord to turn it on. We only used the basement for storage, old bikes, boxes, stuff we didn't need. There was a switch at the top of the stairs that turned on the light. But the weird thing was, sometimes the light would be on when none of us had gone down there. It happened maybe once or twice in the first month, but we just laughed it off. We blamed each other or said maybe we forgot to turn it off. Then one night, everything changed. It was late. Around 2 a.m. I had just finished a paper and was heading to bed. Mark was already asleep. Leo was out at his girlfriend's place. I turned off the lights in the kitchen and was walking past the basement door when I saw it. The light was on. This time, I was sure none of us had been down there. I froze, staring at the thin line of light under the door. I reached for the doorknob, then stopped. I don't know why, but I felt scared. Like something was waiting on the other side. Still, I opened it. The stairs creaked as I stepped down. "Hello?" I called out, trying to sound brave. No answer. I kept going. The air got colder with every step. When I reached the bottom, I looked around. Nothing seemed out of place. I walked to the middle and pulled the cord to turn the light off. Then I turned to go back upstairs, and that's when I heard it. A whisper. It was so quiet I wasn't sure if I imagined it. It sounded like someone saying my name. "Aaron!" I spun around. "Who's there?" I shouted. Nothing. The room was pitch dark now, but I didn't dare turn the light back on. I just ran up the stairs and slammed the door shut. The next morning, I told Mark and Leo. They laughed at me, said I was probably just tired or dreaming. But I knew what I heard. Over the next few days, things got worse. The basement lights started turning on more often. Always at night. We all noticed it now. Even Leo, who didn't scare easy, said something felt wrong. Sometimes we'd hear faint noises, shuffling, whispers, knocking. We stopped opening the basement door. One night, I woke up to a loud bang. I ran into the hallway, and Mark and Leo were already there. The basement door was wide open. None of us had touched it. Mark grabbed a bat, and we went down together. The light was on again. When we reached the bottom, we saw something that made my blood run cold. There were footprints in the dust. Bare footprints. But not just one set, 3. We called the landlord the next day and demanded he come check. When he arrived, he looked nervous. After some pressure, he told us the truth. Before we moved in, the house had been empty for years. The last tenant had been an old man who died alone in the basement. No one found him for weeks. The neighbors complained about the smell. When they finally checked, they found his body near the corner under the stairs. The landlord said the lights started acting strange after that, but he thought it was just wiring. He never told us because he didn't want to scare us off. We moved out the next week. I've lived in 4 places since then. But I still dream about that house. I see the light under the basement door. I hear the whisper. And I wonder, what would have happened if I stayed down there just a little longer?